How? 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 Tell me how. TNA, how are you going to do... Oh, I'm sorry, hold on, time out. Hit the reset button. TNA is dead, according to Impact Wrestling and Anthem, which, thank you, by the way. I really appreciate the fact that you killed off TNA. You're going new, you're going fresh. And then you did it. Let's talk about this. We're going to rant about this a little bit because of what they're doing to the Hardys. Now, I have an important question to ask you, and I want to know your opinions in the comment section below, because it is true. The Hardys stayed with TNA and Impact Wrestling when other people were fleeing. They helped finance shows, and according to RebySky, the 3 highest things from last year were, in fact, financed by the Hardys. You had total nonstop deletion, the compound, everything that they did brought in eyeballs. But then the question remains, though, do they own the broken universe? And that's what I want to rant about, because RebySky lost it today. By the way, I shaved. I had ingrown hair. Damn, because I'm looking good. All that fucking spinach. Anyway, what I was trying to say was Reby's pissed because they got a 15-page cease and desist letter about the broken universe. Basically, Impact is saying they own it. And fans are quick to jump that Impact Wrestling fucking sucks. Impact is horrible. Impact is the worst company. How could you, for people that stuck around with you and helped save your company, or at least transition to the new part, how could you do this to them? How could you fuck them over? The Hardys could have left. The Hardys could have went to WWE, Ring of Honor, New Japan. They could have went anywhere, but they chose to stay with you, Anthem. How? Why? Why would you go after the broken universe? But let's take out the TNA bias out of it for a second. Let's say, just like the Hardys, let's take out the finance troubles. Let's say that it wasn't necessarily a problem in finance for WWE. Let's say like WWE was broke and you had John Cena, and John Cena threw in some money to have some creative control over his character, and he got himself over. He did something new and got himself over, and you would be like, okay, well, John financed it. You might think that he should own that character. He should do something like that. But it's still WWE. If a character in WWE, like all wrestlers, pitch a character that's not like their real name, and then they go on to something else, WWE still owns the rights or the trademark to that because that's what they do. Now, WWE recently has been bringing people in, allowing them to keep their own names, and just while they're in WWE, WWE is monetizing that, the names, merchandise, products, etc. Guys like Samoa Joe. But then the question comes in, because if you're a company, you do want to own the names and the characters. So that way, if they ever leave, they can still be, formally known as. But the WWE can still monetize their content. As a business, that's smart. But in Impact Wrestling's case, the ratings were going down. They've switched networks. People were flocking away from the show. People were getting paid late, backstage people, talent, etc. Where the contracts that they had didn't really mean much because they could pay them late. They can make excuses with the Dixie Carter era. But then comes Anthem coming in. Then comes everybody now leaving. In the last, what do they say? About 20% of the roster is now left. 20% of the roster has just left TNA. And I was thinking about this. It is true that when TNA was in a slow slump, when they were in the Dixie Carter era, talent stayed around. But just because you stay around doesn't mean, I don't think it means what people think it should. Because if you stick around with the dying ship, you could be loyal, right? You could say if the new owners come in, I was loyal to you. I stayed with you. But the flip side of that, logically, would be, why the fuck did you stay? Who are you looking out for? Why were you expecting something different? But in the Hardys' cases, it's different because the Hardys, their names are incorporated in this. If Matt Hardy owns Matt Hardy and he's Matt Hardy, but TNA owns Broken Matt Hardy, how is that possible? Because it has Matt Hardy in it. Brother Nero is Jeff's middle name. Can they own that? The 7 deities, everything that goes into the broken universe, can they own it? Senor Benjamin is also being attacked. Senor Benjamin was never under contract with TNA or Impact Wrestling, and it's muddying it. Reby's pissed about her father, and I understand that point, but at the same time, even if you're financing and you're working with a company, based on the contract, who owns the broken universe? Now, if any other character like Damien Sandow did his intellectual gimmick, or say he had an actual name or something behind it, you couldn't use that outside of WWE. I know a lot of people are pissed and hating on TNA right now, and it does suck because of what happened. The Hardys stuck around. The Hardys could have left and done anything, but they chose to stay with Impact Wrestling, and that's a big deal for a lot of people. And that's loyalty. That is something that shows the Hardys are some of the most important people to have, especially when you want a live tour. The Hardys draw. And that wasn't the case because I remember seeing Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy, I don't think you'll see this video, but if you do, I remember seeing you at Heavy on Wrestling. years ago with Chaz Betts with Chad Gable from WWE now in American Alpha. And when I saw you then, you didn't care. It seemed like, you're out of shape. You were just there doing your wrestling. But then look at what you have done. Look how you've transformed. And Impact Wrestling is going to come along and say, fuck you, we own it. I don't know if I agree with that, and I don't know if that's right. I think that may, in fact, be an issue because, one, it involves his name. But the thing is, in the contract will depend if one person owns it or the Hardys own it. Because if you think about it, you have King Maxwell, you have RebySky, you have everything that went into this, but the big question remains, legally, who owns it? And as much as I want to rant and bitch and complain and moan and just go off on a tangent on TNA, it still remains that if they were under contract with Impact Wrestling, even though TNA and Impact really don't honor their contracts, they can pay late and then just claim shit later under the Dixie Carter era, blame it on Panda Energy and all that other bullshit. Why did the people stay around? Because they believed in it. But you still have to make a living, you have to make money. But unlike a lot of the talents in Impact, the Hardys were actually very, very well known and very well off. Matt Hardy was very smart to create Matt Hardy brand. Jeff Hardy brand. Reby handled all the orders, which I didn't know with customer service. So Reby, you're a goddamn hero. You're a full-time mom. You ran the store, the customer service, the shipping. Goddamn, RebySky is amazing. Like, if you actually think about that, that's pretty fucking amazing. And then you have TNA just coming in now and being like, no. Everything we did, we own it. And I want to take the Hardy side, I really do. And I do think that as just a parting gift, like, if you're trying to rebuild your company and you're going to shit on a fan favorite, it almost makes me wonder, is this a work? Is this something they're trying to plan to bring eyeballs to the product? Is this something that WWE and wrestling fans have to do? Do we have to unite as one in a kayfabe universe and pretend to sue the Hardys to draw eyeballs to Ring of Honor tonight? And then is Ring of Honor going to pay back Impact Wrestling? Or is Jeff Jarrett and a bunch of other shit going on really that bad? We're going to have to wait for that. But I want to say this very clearly. Before just jumping on Impact or TNA, or taking the Hardys side, or, going against the Hardys, contracts matter. Contracts, unfortunately, fucking suck in a lot of times because there's out clauses, there's ways to screw over other people, and it is right. Like in the case of networks and YouTubers, we were able to just get cut like that because there was a clause in the contract that we can terminate you at any time. But if YouTubers try to leave networks, they're like, no, they can stall, they can do whatever the fuck they want because we have no rights because we signed that contract. So legally, I don't know what the Hardys' rights are. I don't know where it's going to go. But I have to say this. Impact, what are you going to make? Broken Brilliance-wise, what are you going to monetize? How are you going to capitalize on the broken universe with them gone? Are you going to start selling 7 Deities shirts? If you piss off the Hardys to the point where the Hardys are pissed off and the Hardys are going after it and their fans are there, who's going to actually buy that merchandise? What is the point of keeping control over it if the fans are pissed off and, Reby and Matt and Jeff can go to their fans and be like, what the fuck? Is Don West Deals going to have to go and pitch everything and try to get rid of old inventory? Are they going to try to capitalize it? Are they trying to find any way to make money possible? Is this kayfabe? I don't know. But a really important thing to keep in mind, at least for me, is I think there has to be some degree of loyalty here to realize, you know what, maybe we do own it, but Matt, for everything that you did and helped finance and everything that went into this, we're going to let you keep it. It probably is Impact Wrestling. See, if you're under contract with them, they probably do own the rights. Like, everybody's getting pissed off the fact that Impact is requiring their talents and superstars to give them 10% of any independent bookings, but nobody is forcing them to go to Impact Wrestling and give up that money. But it's a job. You got to work, kid. And if Impact Wrestling is going to pay, they try to recently cut down dates. So instead of getting paid for like 12 shows, if you're on 12 shows, you're only getting paid for the 4 days of taping instead, so you're making less money. As a company that's trying to rebuild, you want to have the absolute bottom low dollar cost. You want to shut it down. I understand that from Impact. But Impact, why don't you just let this one go? You're rebuilding. You're trying to do a lot of stuff. Is fighting with the Hardys, unless it's kayfabe and it's fucking awesome, because that would be sweet as absolute shit. What are you gaining by pissing off the guys that helped you stay around? But at the same time, you could say, when it comes to genuine wrestling, that maybe there are some fans that absolutely hate the Hardys. Maybe that's why they couldn't rebound. Maybe the little bit that they did to retain the audience or bring in a little bit more people, it could have been more if it wasn't for that. A lot of the stuff they did was revolutionary and I loved it, but at the same time I was questioning when I showed a couple, fans of wrestling, they went, what the fuck? So it's a big question to be asked, but I have to wait for the contracts to come out before I can fully make my decision, but I can just say this. Impact, just do the right thing. Even if you legally have the rights to this, think of what the Hardys did for you when they stuck around for you. They could have left, they could have dished out, they could have found a way out of their contracts, but they didn't. They stayed with you. Maybe it's time to reward some of that loyalty with some of your own. Maybe Anthem wants to be hardcore and maybe Anthem wants to be dicks, but at the end of the day, the contracts matter. But in this case, I say you just give the Hardys the win here. Take the L, Anthem, move on, create a new show, and don't piss off fans anymore. Just my thought.